Hey, this is Mr. W. Welcome to Thinking Biologically. This episode is called Cellular Respiration and ATP, the Big Picture, Part 1. This diagram is a big picture view of cellular respiration, one of the major pathways by which cells make ATP. That's the molecule that living things use to power most of the work of staying alive. Don't panic at the complexity. The purpose of this video and the one that follows is to provide an overview of how ATP works and how cellular respiration makes ATP. Soon you're going to be able to explain this no problem. In this video we'll cover the structure of ATP, how ATP is used to power cellular work, we'll get an overview of the 4 phases of cellular respiration, and we'll look at substrate-level phosphorylation, one of the 2 ways that ATP is generated. This video is linked to 2 interactive tutorials on sciencemusicvideos.com. The first is entitled ATP and Energy, and the second one is entitled Cellular Respiration Overview. I also have 3 music videos about cellular respiration. Glycolysis, come on sugar for the breakdown. There's also the Krebs cycle.
Krebs, it's a citric acid cycle, Krebs. Tricarboxylic acid cycle, Krebs.
And the electron transport chain.
The mitochondrial electron transport chain uses electron energy for pumping protons from the...
Let's go. Cellular respiration's function is to make ATP. That's the molecule that your cells use to grow, divide, repair themselves, maintain homeostasis, and so on. Muscle contractions are directly powered by ATP. The nerve impulses that occur when you think about biology or anything else are made possible by ion pumps that were powered by ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. It's a ribonucleotide, one of the monomers of RNA. Its sugar is ribose. Attached to the ribose on one side is the nitrogenous base adenine. On ribose's other side are 3 phosphate groups. Cells can hydrolyze or break this bond between the 3rd and the 2nd phosphate, which converts ATP into its lower energy counterpart, ADP, and what's called inorganic phosphate. ADP stands for adenosine diphosphate because it has 2 phosphate groups, whereas adenosine triphosphate, ATP, has 3 phosphate groups. Just remember that ATP is the high energy form and ADP plus phosphate is the low energy form. When cells convert ATP to ADP and phosphate, that makes energy available for cellular work. Living things are constantly carrying out that conversion. It's how we stay alive. That means that cells need to constantly replenish their supply of ATP by combining ADP and inorganic phosphate, and that takes an outside input of energy. One of the food-derived energy sources that drives that conversion is glucose, a monosaccharide with the formula C6H12O6. It's not the only energy source for making ATP, but it's a very common one, and the one that introductory college level or AP biology courses focus on when cellular respiration is taught. Here you can see glucose in the context of cellular respiration. It's the fuel that powers the whole process. Let's look on the other side of this diagram, where you see this staircase that leads to oxygen and which results in the production of water. Oxygen is the other essential input for what's called aerobic cellular respiration. That means respiration with oxygen, which is by far the most efficient way that cellular respiration can occur and the only sustainable way for most organisms. Now look to the middle of the diagram where you see carbon dioxide being produced. If we zoom away from all the detail, then what we're left with is this equation. Glucose plus oxygen yields carbon dioxide, water, and between 30 and 32 ATPs. Notice that cellular respiration can be divided into 4 phases. The first is glycolysis, which happens in the cytoplasm and which makes about 1/16 of the ATP that's made during cellular respiration. After glycolysis comes the link reaction, which brings the byproducts of glycolysis to the mitochondria. This orange arc represents the membrane of the mitochondria. A little bit of additional ATP, another 1/16 of the total, is made in the mitochondria through a series of cyclical reactions called the Krebs cycle. And the vast majority of the ATP, the other 7/8, is made at the end of the process. That's the stairway over here called the electron transport chain. The way that it works is phenomenally cool, and it'll be the main focus of the next video. So how does ATP creation actually happen? It's called phosphorylation. That's easy to remember because you're adding a phosphate to ADP to make ATP. There are two different ways in which phosphorylation happens. I'm going to end this video by explaining the one that happens in glycolysis and the Krebs cycle. This process is called substrate-level phosphorylation. An enzyme, shown at 1, takes a phosphate from some organic substrate. That just means a carbon-based molecule that has a phosphate group, and transfers it to ADP, making ATP. Here's one of the substrate-level phosphorylations that happens in glycolysis. An enzyme called pyruvate kinase takes this phosphate group off of phosphoenol pyruvate, do not worry about the name of that, and jams it onto ADP, creating ATP. The molecule at the end is pyruvic acid. It's the substrate without its phosphate, and pyruvic acid is a molecule that we'll see a lot of as we study respiration. The substrate-level phosphorylations that happen in glycolysis and in the Krebs cycle only account for about 1/8 of the ATP that cellular respiration creates. The other approximately 7/8 of the ATP gets made over here as a result of the electron transport chain. This kind of ATP creation is called oxidative phosphorylation. It's a complex, wondrous process. I am so looking forward to explaining it, but we're going to do that in the next video. If you feel like I'm doing a good job, please leave me a comment saying something like, "Got it, Mr. W." That always makes me pretty happy. Also, please like this video, and above all, share it. Pass it on to someone who might use it. Thank you so much.